You're still cooking? It's almost 12:30. I got home at 10:30. I haven't eaten since noon. Imagine coming home after a 9-hour shift. You're tired, hungry, running on fumes. You make yourself a simple meal, pork chops, broccoli, nothing fancy, and you're done by midnight. You clean up quietly, trying not to disturb anyone. Now imagine being told you can't do that anymore. I'm 21 years old. I work full-time. I buy my own food. And apparently, that's not enough. My name is not important. Let's call me Maya. I'm 21. I work a 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. shift at a job that doesn't care about my dinner schedule. And for the past 5 months, I've been living under a series of escalating rules about when and how I'm allowed to feed myself. It started last October. I came home around 10:30, same as always. I was hungry. I'd worked through my break because we were short-staffed. I made myself a reasonable amount of food. Not a feast, just dinner. The next morning, my father sat me down. He's 49, a good man in a lot of ways, but married to a woman who I think has never quite forgiven me for existing before she arrived. My stepmother, 44, sharp, quick to anger, stood behind him like a prosecutor presenting evidence. "You made too much food," my father said. "We're banning you from cooking." I blinked. Banning me? You use too many dishes. You take up too much time in the kitchen. From now on, you're not allowed to use the stove. I looked at my stepmother. She said nothing, just watched. "So, what am I supposed to eat?" "The air fryer. You can use the air fryer." That was it. First offense, no warning, no conversation, banished to the air fryer. For the crime of cooking dinner after a 9-hour shift. I didn't fight it. I was too tired, too shocked, too conditioned by years of walking on eggshells. I just nodded and went to my room. The air fryer became my kitchen. I learned to make everything in that tiny machine. Chicken, vegetables. Sometimes I'd get creative and make something almost decent. It wasn't ideal, but it was something. After a few weeks, they lifted the ban. No explanation, no apology. Just a casual, you can use the stove again, dropped into conversation like it was no big deal. I didn't celebrate. I just quietly started cooking again. For about a week. The second ban came faster. And it came with a twist. One night, I got home late, later than usual. Maybe 11. I was exhausted, starving, and the last thing I wanted to do was cook. So I didn't. I grabbed a protein bar from my stash and went to bed. The next day, my stepmother confronted me. "You didn't cook last night." I was confused. I wasn't hungry enough to deal with it. I just had a bar. That's not the point. We lifted the ban, and you're supposed to be cooking now. Wait, you banned me from cooking, then lifted the ban, and now you're mad that I'm not cooking? You're being difficult on purpose. My father stepped in. If you're not going to cook when you're allowed, then you're not allowed to cook. Effective immediately. Back to the air fryer. I stared at them. That doesn't even make sense. But sense wasn't the point. Control was. So I went back to the air fryer. Back to midnight meals. Back to tiptoeing around a kitchen I was allowed to use, but not really. For months, this was my life. Work, commute, air fryer, sleep. Repeat. I bought my own food, every single thing I ate. I kept it in a separate part of the fridge, labeled, hoping they'd respect the boundary. They didn't always. But I kept replacing what they took, because fighting wasn't worth it. I thought I'd found a rhythm. An uneasy peace. Then came Sunday night. Sunday, 10:30 p.m. I got home from work. Hungry. Tired. Ready to make something simple. I pulled out pork chops and broccoli. Air fryer only, per the rules. I cooked, ate, cleaned up. By midnight, I was done. Everything washed. Everything put away. I went to bed. Except, I left the dishes in the sink for 2 hours. I know that sounds bad. Let me explain. I had somewhere I needed to be right after eating. Not a party, an errand. Something I couldn't put off. I left the dishes soaking, planning to deal with them when I got back. I got back 2 hours later. Washed them immediately. Thought nothing of it. The next morning, my father informed me I was banned from cooking again. Third time. Indefinitely. "You left dishes in the sink for hours," he said. "That's unacceptable." I wanted to explain. To tell him about the errand, about the timing, about how I'd wash them as soon as I returned. But I knew it wouldn't matter. The rule wasn't really about the dishes. It was about control. And I was tired of fighting. So I just said, okay. That was Monday. Tuesday was when it got worse. Tuesday afternoon, I was at work when my phone buzzed. A text from my stepmother. I should have waited to read it. I should have braced myself. Instead, I opened it during a slow moment and felt my blood pressure spike. "If you're going to come here and cook in the air fryer, you need to be done cooking by 11 p.m. My sleep is being disturbed when you're cooking late because of the noise and or smell, and I have to work in the morning. You don't get a break around dinner time? Why not eat, then, instead of coming here cooking late?" I read it 3 times, trying to find the logic. 11 p.m. I get home at 10:30. That gives me 30 minutes to cook, eat, and clean. 30 minutes to prepare a meal after a 9-hour shift. 30 minutes to nourish myself in the home I supposedly live in. I typed back carefully, calmly. I asked why the rule was changing now, when 12 a.m. had been the standard for months. Her response was immediate. Cold. Yes, we did say 12 a.m. initially, but obviously you can't follow the rules. It's definitely been after 12 a.m., because I've been waking up because of the noise and smell and looked at the clock and you were still in there cooking. I told her I was always done by midnight. That if I was still in the kitchen after, it was because I was cleaning up. That I was trying to be considerate. She didn't believe me. Didn't want to believe me. That's when I made my mistake. I said, honestly, y'all are inconsiderate to me. Most of the time if you cook, you either don't leave me food or don't leave much. And you never let me know when it's a fend-for-yourself night. You'll have my number. 5 words. That's what set her off. You'll have my number. She acted like I'd cursed her out, like I'd screamed obscenities at her. The text became a wall of fury. How dare I be disrespectful? How dare I talk back? How dare I suggest she should communicate with me like a human being? I try to explain, to de-escalate, to say that I wasn't trying to be rude, just pointing out that a simple text would solve half our problems. She wasn't listening. She was yelling through text, telling me to stop talking because she was talking, accusing me of things I hadn't said, interpreting everything in the worst possible light. We went in circles for an hour. Me, trying to be reasonable. Her, committed to being offended. Then she brought up the do not touch notes. Yes, I put notes on my food, because they kept eating it, without asking, without telling me. I'd come home, craving something I'd bought, and it would be gone. No explanation. No déplacement. Just gone. I asked if they could just give me a heads up when they use my stuff. She fired back. Do I give you a heads up when I use my stuff? I said no, but that's because I replace things before they even notice they're gone. I'm not taking without asking. I'm borrowing and returning. There's a difference. She didn't see it. Wouldn't see it. The conversation was like talking to concrete. Every point I made bounced off and came back as an accusation. By the end, I was shaking. Not with anger, with exhaustion. With the weight of being treated like a problem for wanting to eat. Here's what I need you to understand about my situation. I work full-time. I pay for my own food. I contribute to the household in the ways I'm allowed to. I'm not a teenager sneaking snacks. I'm an adult who happens to live with her father and stepmother because rent is impossible and I'm trying to save. But in their eyes, I'm still a child. Still someone to be managed. Still someone whose needs are secondary, optional, negotiable. The cooking bans aren't about food. They're about power. About reminding me that this isn't my home, it's theirs. That I'm here on sufferance, not by right. The 11 p.m. rule isn't about sleep. It's about control. About making sure I know that my schedule, my 1 to 10 job, my late nights, my need to eat after work, is an inconvenience to be minimized, not a reality to be accommodated. The explosion over "y'all have my number" wasn't about disrespect. It was about me daring to suggest that they should treat me like a person with legitimate needs. That they should communicate with me instead of just imposing rules. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I've never made mistakes. I'm sure I have. I'm sure there are things I could have done better, ways I could have been more considerate. But at some point, consideration has to go both ways. At some point, an adult living in a home should be allowed to eat when they're hungry. At some point, the people who claim to love you should actually act like it. I'm moving out next week. I've been saving for months, and I finally found a place, a small studio, nothing fancy but mine. All mine. No cooking buns. Number 11 p.m. curfews. No do not touch notes on my food. My stepmother doesn't know yet. My father does. He didn't try to stop me. He just nodded and said, probably for the best. Probably. I don't hate them. That's the strange part. I don't even really blame them. Not entirely. They're products of their own histories, their own wounds, their own ideas about how families should work. My stepmother came into this household when I was already a teenager, old enough to feel like an intruder in my own life, young enough to need parenting I never quite received. We've never known how to fit together. We've been trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces for 7 years. Moving out won't fix that, but it will give me space to stop being the problem in their story and start being the main character in my own. I am scared. Not gonna lie. Rent is expensive. Being alone is expensive. There will be nights when I can't afford pork chops, when I eat ramen and tell myself it's fine. But there will also be nights when I cook at midnight, when I leave dishes in the sink for 2 hours, when I exist in my own space without apologizing for taking up room. I'm ready for those nights. I'm ready to be hungry and fed on my own terms. This is the part of the story where I'm supposed to tell you what I learned. Some neat lesson about family or independence or standing up for yourself. But the truth is, I'm still learning. I'm still figuring out what I should have done differently what I could have said, what I might have changed if I'd been braver or smarter or more patient. But next week, I'll have my own kitchen, my own schedule, my own rules. And the first thing I'm going to do is cook something at midnight. Not because I'm hungry, because I can. If you enjoyed this story and want more, like and subscribe.